So we have that happening. Excellent. Welcome, everybody. It is my absolute pleasure to be with all of you here on our Maker Stories webinar series. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Maria Marquis, and here at Coda, I consider myself the Chief Cheerleading Officer. It's a very important title. But what I love about my job is that I get to sit down with makers like Scott and all of you and celebrate the creative process that is doc and now pack building with Coda. So I just love nerding out on what excites people and helping people feel empowered to work with Coda in their day-to-day. So that's a little bit about me, but I'm also joined by the fabulous Scott. Scott, do you want to introduce yourself to the group? Let them know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Scott, obviously, and I am in Santa Cruz, California. So that's Bay Area of California, about an hour south of San Francisco. And I do a lot of Coda stuff. In my past life, I was a public high school teacher working with disabilities. And so I taught during the whole pandemic era. So I'm very used to Zoom calls with a bunch of quiet people. So this feels like a very familiar space to me, very familiar. Talking a lot on a Zoom call and having no one else talk. It's great.
Fantastic. Well, and to that point, everybody, even though Scott and I are going to be talking a lot and are comfortable with the sounds of silence, we want this to be about all of you, right? So if you have questions, concerns, thoughts, emotional outbursts, bright ideas, we want to hear about it. There's no such thing as an interruption in our webinar here today. That's why that chat field is there. So if you have a question or anything on your mind, please do not feel like you have to wait until the end, because we want to hear about it as soon as it pops into your mind. And that is actually my primary job today, is to keep a very close eye on all the great things y'all are saying so that I can lift up those questions here for Scott. So when we think about our Maker Stories webinars, what we do is we sit down with a Coda maker, we learn about the problem that they wanted to solve, and then how they went about it with Coda. So we can really think about building, developing, and sort of getting those best practices from other brilliant brains that are out there in the world. So Scott, I know that you are like all Coda all the time. So can you tell us a little bit about sort of what you do right now with your Coda work?
Yeah. So right now with my Coda work, I work with companies or individuals who are using Coda or who want to use Coda, and I help them kind of supercharge their use of it. I think a lot of the people I work with have started using Coda and they realize like this has a lot of potential. This could really change things for me, for how I work and for my business. But at the same time, like I've got a business to run. I've got other things I need to do. I can't invest hours and hours and hours a day about learning all these intricacies of like design and formulas. And so that's where I can come in and kind of take the vision that they have of what they want Coda to do for them or their business and kind of help make that a reality.
Yeah, excellent. So let's start with, I think, one of my favorite doc pack combos that you built, which is the Strava doc pack. So can you talk a little bit about the problem that you wanted to solve before you built this doc pack combo?
Yeah, so I've been using Coda since like 2017.
Ooh, OG, love it.
Yeah, OG. It was back when you had to like, I found it, I can't even remember where or how, but you had to like apply to get an account. You couldn't just sign up. You had to like be like, please give me an account, please, please, please. And eventually they did. And so I started using it for my work, solving different problems. But as I started using it, one of my initial thoughts, like way back then, was like, it would be so cool to get Strava in here. Strava, if you don't know what it is, it's like essentially a GPS tracking app on your phone. You can get it on any of your phones. You take your phone with you as you run or cycle. Mainly people use it for running and cycling, but you can use it for like cross-country skiing and rowing and like indoor rowing. Like it's just got all these different sports essentially to track like how am I doing in my progress.
Yeah.
I've always been a competitive athlete. So I ran cross-country kind of distance running through college and through high school. And so like competitive athletics has just always been a thing for me. And so I had this idea like way back then, like it'd be so cool to get Strava data in. And before packs launched, you had to like request packs to be made because only Coda as a company can make them. And so of course, right away, I requested Strava and complete radio silence, never heard anything about it. So yeah, the moment that packs launched, in my mind, I thought it would be so cool to get a Strava pack. Unfortunately, I don't have any coding experience whatsoever. Bummer. And so I just kind of forgot about it for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then now, I mean, you've now built this pack
Yeah.
So let's actually talk a little bit about how you started to realize, you know what, I can do this. So what was that process? How did you kind of approach getting the skills that you would need to start to work with SDKs and be able to build on top of the PAX platform?
Yeah. So I still don't even know what an SDK is. I don't even know what
Software developer kit?
Who
I think
knows?
that's it.
Eric's in here. He can tell us on the chat. I still don't even know what that is. So yeah, I am completely new to coding. I have zero technical background. I have a master's in education, a teacher's credential for high school, and then a bachelor's in religious studies. Right.
Yeah.
So just zero technical background. And when the packs were launched in beta, my first thought was, that's not for me, right? Like, oh, that's this new cool Coda thing that's for the coders. It's for the technical people. And so I just didn't even honestly pursue signing up for that beta.
Yeah.
But was still hopeful a Strava pack would come. So then some time kind of passed and someone from Coda reached out to me. I still don't even remember who, but they essentially just said, hey, we'd love to hear your thoughts on pack building, how it's been going. Kind of responded back to them like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Who? What?
I haven't been building packs and I don't build packs. They were like, oh no, you're on the beta. We'd love to hear what you did. And I was like, oh, fine. So I kind of had to take that kind of push to do it because I had this mental block in my mind of I'm not a coder. I'm not a technical guy. I can't do this. But yeah, with that push, I was just like, you know what? No, I don't. I can do this. Like I can push myself. I can learn and started to learn JavaScript.
Yeah. So how'd you learn JavaScript? Because I mean, I think we have a fair amount of folks on the call who are like, wow, that's me too. Like, I just didn't think, I thought that was for the fancy people, but clearly not for little old me. So how did you teach yourself? What did that look like?
I'd say about 5 or 6 years ago, I tried to learn JavaScript, probably before I even ever touched Coda. And I spent like a month on it and it was just impossible. I was just like, what is a function? Like, it just like, I had no concept, no framework in my mind whatsoever. So eventually just gave up. I was like, this just makes no sense to me. I have no idea what a variable is. They're calling it a bucket for info. I just was like mind blown. I was like, I don't get it. So just totally gave up. So how long did it take to learn the ins out? Getting there. Awesome. So then I spent a total of 3 hours learning JavaScript before I built my first pack. And so my second time learning JavaScript was like absolutely streamlined. I signed up for Codecademy. I think I just even had their free plan. I took the like beginners JavaScript Codecademy. It gave me enough language to understand like, oh, I have to use a curly bracket here and I have to use a comma here, right? Like I had to learn those basic fundamentals. But what I learned as I took this JavaScript course is that my time spent in Coda was like secretly teaching me to code the entire time. It's like, it was crazy. Like I think Coda's formula language teaches you to think computationally. It teaches you to think like a computer because you have to think about, okay, if this happens, then do that. And if that happens, then do that. And there's ways that you can use like variables in Coda, and then every single Coda formula is a function. So I think as I started to learn JavaScript the second time, I was just like mind blown. I was like, wait a second, I already know this.
Yes.
It's just like the language is a tiny bit different. I use let instead of with name, or I use, length instead of count, but like it's the same. And so that's what I did. I did Codecademy for about 3 hours. And then I said, I think I can build a pack. And I built, Strava was not the first one I built. I built like a HGB hex code converter, which converts like color values. So I think I built my first pack within like a week after 3 hours of Codecademy.
You know what? I love this idea of like the Coda formula language is secretly it's like incepting JavaScript into your head.
It is.
Because if I think about the history of the Coda formula language, how it was built with JavaScript and Excel in mind. So it's a bit of a combination of like these two languages coming together, but JavaScript is most certainly like, I think if we think about Italian versus Spanish, right? They have a very similar language structure. There's the verbs are slightly different. The words are slightly different, but there's definitely a shared structure. Like, that if you want to say I like, it's going to be in the same structure, me gusta, or I forget my Italian. But like, it makes learning that other language a lot easier because you already have built this foundation to be able to understand. And I would assume that when you were learning JavaScript before, like if you didn't have a particular thing you wanted to do with it, it's harder to kind of place it. But if I want to build a Strava pack so that I can bring my cycling data into a Kodadoc to track my progress, it kind of makes it a little bit more manageable, I would assume. Like, it doesn't have a problem to solve. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, my brother's trying to learn how to code right now. And that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I give him. I was like, you have to pick something that, also you probably hear my kids back there.
She's so cute. I love it. I love it.
She's 1 and my son is 4.
Magical. They could build packs too.
Yeah, I said get Codecademy, like the free thing, like start learning. But then really you need to find something that you want to build that feels both like reachable, like within your reach, and like actually functional. Like you might possibly use this thing.
Yeah.
You need some sort of motivation, right? I think like learning to code is hard and it is frustrating. And there's a lot of obstacles that come up and things that don't work. And if you don't have that like motivation of, but I could build a Strava pack, I could get my data in, you're going to quit, because it's going to be like, why am I learning this? Why am I going through this frustrating experience to learn if there's no tangible like output from it? So I always am saying like, start to learn the syntax, the boring stuff, but quickly find a small, reachable, tangible product for yourself that will be a means of motivation to both learn and to keep going.
Yeah. And I always think about, it's the same as like, again, you'll notice I'm a language person, right? So I always come back to like, how do we connect this to language? And it's like, if I want to learn every word in the dictionary, you better believe I'm going to get overwhelmed quickly and give up. But if I want to learn how to translate a song that I really like that's in another language and figure out what it means, like that's a more attainable, manageable, and like more meaningful learning process. So that gives me the fuel to maintain that momentum, because I'm going to get that immediate hit of like, I'm making progress on something that matters more than just, I got to learn this thing so I can be like the cool kids over at the lunch table who know how to code. Oh, we have a really good question here, which is, were you a heavy user of Coda packs before you started making your own?
Yeah. I think.
Yes.
Like I used almost like every doc I made, I was using the Gmail pack.
Yes.
A lot of what I did was in the school setting, and a lot of what I was doing was like automating emails and communications both to parents and to teachers. And so like, let's say students were absent one day, I would just quickly check like the students who were absent, and then it would send an email out both with like the agenda for the day, links to assignments, and like a thing to the parent of like, hey, where's your kid at? Checking in. How are you doing? How's everything? And so I used a lot of the Gmail and the Google Calendar packs.
Yeah, I think those communication packs are such a good like first step, right? If anyone's new to thinking about what packs might even mean, starting with those is great because they can input, so pull in information, but also take information out by pushing it out to Coda, which is a really great starting place. So Scott, let's actually take a look at this doc. Let's take a look at the doc pack combo. We've been building it up in our minds. I want to see it. Give us a bit of a tour here. And also remember, folks, you can ask those questions at any time. Just post them right over there to chat. We'll be totally happy to answer whatever's on your mind, even before we close out today. I'm never going to stop being sad seeing those trees. Those trees make me so happy.
I know. Okay, wait. So you see this, right? Confirmation.
Yes, there it is. Perfect.
I think this is the right one. So this doc specifically was, I'm a cyclist, as you can tell by the bikes in the background. And so I wanted to get more data. I also, like, some people just enjoy like athletics for like the joy of being athletic. The thing that is fun for me is the competitive aspect of it. Like that was what makes athletics fun, is competing. And a lot of that right now is just competing against myself, right? So understanding like, how fast am I going? What is my average speed I can take on a ride? Well, what was my average speed I could take on a ride last month? And am I doing better than that now? And so being able to get all my Strava data in here has just been really, really cool for me. I think this is all updated. So in the background, it's all coming in.
Ooh, some hidden pages. Love it.
41 days ago, I haven't updated this specific dot. So this was the sync table. This is what's coming in via the pack. So this is what I actually built with the pack. I wonder if I'm still connected and can sync. Come on, Strava.
do it. You've had so much cool stuff going on.
Everybody cross your fingers. I know, I wrote a couple days ago. Come on. Come on. Okay, we'll come back to you, Strava. You're going slow because of Zoom.
Strava's just taking its time.
But yeah, so now it's really cool. Now I can kind of look at it month by month, right? So I can just look at January, what I did, right? And this is just the distance of each one. What I really love about it for myself too is I do a lot of road riding versus mountain bike riding. And so I really want to know, those are very different, right? Like the average speed I want to be going on my road bike is like 17 miles per hour, where the average speed on my mountain bike, I want to be going like, 13 miles per hour. So I don't want to get those data pieces mixed up. I want to be able to look at them differently. And so I have each of my bikes tagged. And so here's my mountain bike, and there is my road bike right now. And so I can kind of see the different distances for those. So that's super helpful for me. Can kind of see it in different times.
Yeah, I love you have this like dashboard, a customized dashboard that you made for yourself, right? You can decide what's really important to you and structure it how you want to see it, and be able to have that. And I love how you're using images and cards here as well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been good. I have 2 kids, as you probably heard in the background. And so it's been a big year for me of like really wanting to get back into athletics. So I made a goal for myself. And my goal is that I wanted to hit an activity count of 52 rides per year. And so that was just one a week. Like last year, I didn't do anywhere close to that. So I just set this goal of like, I want to do at least 1 ride a week. And so, it's keeping my progress there. Right now, I've done 19 rides this year, and I can kind of edit that goal if I need to.
Yeah.
But it's cool to just be able to see like, okay, like I'm making good progress. I've got 19 out of this. And so it also,
that's pretty darn good.
I'm making it. I'm on course. Also helps me with, as I said, competitive, just like max stuff. So I can see like, oh, the max speed I've gone on a bike was 50 miles an hour.
Holy crap.
It was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. The best part about it is I was flying down this hill, and I was like just screaming as I was going down and just like talking to myself. I was like, you can do this. Don't give up. Don't be afraid. And I was like literally screaming. And then as I'm going 50 miles per hour, there's this old dude, like 65 something, just tears past me on his bike. I was just like, come on. Just so discouraging and defeating. I felt like I was going as fast as I ever would. And this guy just went right past.
You're like, slow down there, kid.
Yeah, it was
love it.
Unfortunate. And it did it.
Hey.
So it went through. So this was 2 days ago.
Hey, right on.
Yeah. So that's the Strava thing. So it kind of just gives me the data and the inputs that I want to keep track of my goals, to understand where I'm at in terms of, what's my best average speed? So 17.82. I've never got to 18, but now I can have that as a clear goal. Like, okay, I have to ride a ride above 10 miles that is 18 miles per hour. Average. So yeah.
One other thing that I'm noticing about how you've put this together is there's such an attention to the layouts, right? When you click on one of those cards and it opens up, like how you want to see that subview. I mean, there's a beautiful attention to detail and visualization across the entire board. But I love that there's even here, like, oh, when I dig into this row, I want it to be as delightful and as clear and pretty, for lack of a better word, as everywhere else. Did you do any sort of mapping out of like the UI of what you wanted it to look like? How did you find the sort of the look and feel that you were looking for? Did you sketch it out? What did that look like for you?
I think it's just exploring. I think I came with the initial idea of like, I want to have like comparative timelines. And so I want to see this January versus last January. And I want to see this February versus last February. I want to see this month versus last month. So I wanted a lot of those time comparisons. So I have, my year breakdown, so I can go back to last year and look, and then it's broken down by month. And then I have more, this month, last month, this week, last week that I can look at. But a lot of it just comes as I'm building. Like as I'm building, I realize, oh, that would be really cool. That, okay, yeah, I can see, last July, but I'd also love to see each one individual. And I'd also love to quickly go and view that in Strava and get like more detail on it. So
yeah, I love it. So it's almost like you started with one thing of like, okay, I just want to have all of my Strava data inside of Coda. So I'm going to write a pack that's a sync table to just bring that in. And then, okay, now that I've got this stuff here, what are the questions I want to answer with it? Like, what do I need here? And then be like, oh, I can add this, or, oh, I can add that. I can adjust this. I love that you gave yourself that flexibility to not have to have it be like a full, complete product on day one. That's super cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it's cool. It's been super helpful, and I've loved that I've had it in, and you guys can have it too if you use Strava.
Yeah, and this is all on the gallery. So actually, I'll go ahead and grab that link and put it over there in chat as well.
Mhm.
As you were building this doc and this pack, were there any surprises along the way? Things that you didn't expect?
Uh, yeah, of course. I desperately wanted, when you go to Strava, like one of the best things is seeing your map. You can
Yeah.
see where you went. And so I was like, obviously, I'm going to be able to get that awesome map, and I'm going to have it pop up every time I go to an activity. I'm going to have it pop up right here. Like that was
Uh-huh.
my goal. But their API just doesn't return it. Like you just
Mm,
like, literally cannot get that map photo. So spent a
yeah.
lot of time like digging and trying to figure out like how I could do that, but was just bummed by that. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of it was like surprised by the API and figuring out, okay, what is the API and what is the um, how does it return stuff? APIs, I would also recommend, I think, Zapier API. What is an API? This is what I first like read. They just had this really long blog, an introduction to APIs about this course. It was like, yeah, 8 chapters. It was pretty short. It was like a
Mhm.
PDF, like 25 pages. And I just read it like 3 times because I had never even heard of the word API before. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't even know what that is. So I think if you want to make packs, having like just a concept of what an API is really important. And I
Mhm.
had zero concept. And this just broke it down like really, really well
Yeah.
in terms of just like giving you analogies. Like it always called it a bridge. So it's like you've got 2 platforms. I've got Strava and Coda. They both have information. How do I work? Well, the API is the bridge that brings that info. So
Mhm.
I'd recommend this. I can put that in the chat if we can.
Yes,
But
please.
that was super helpful to me to just like it broke down the concept of this like ethereal thing that exists in the called an API, which is scary, and it broke it down and go, oh, I understand what that is, and I understand
Yes.
the data. So that was super helpful to me. Codecademy, reading through this kind of like 8 chapter thing on what an API is, helped me a ton.
Yeah. And the one thing that I'm hearing over and over again that I really love about your learning style is um, rather than trying to get really granular of like, the minutia of everything, it's like I just have to understand like the boundaries of this sandbox that I'm playing in. Like
Mhm.
what is this structure? What are the key concepts that I need to be aware of so that I can start to figure out the questions I have to ask, right? Like instead of asking, okay, I need to build a Strava pack with Coda, how do I do that? It's like, okay, well, with this thing, there's this SDK thing, and then there's this API thing. So what do these letters freaking mean? Like, okay, well, an SDK means I've got these ingredients, and then an API means I have these ingredients, and now I have to figure out what I'm gonna cook
Mhm.
now that I have these two things. And I would encourage everybody here on the call to, again, the same thing, rather than trying to boil the ocean or figure out all the little tiny bits and bobs, start first with just understanding like the framework of how to think about this problem set, and that can really help move forward. Amazing. We also, I think Eric asked this question, but I'm going to ask it again. It sounds like the tools that you use to learn and try out APIs, it sounds like this one PDF was really helpful, but any other tools that you use to learn and try out APIs? Walk us through a little bit of that.
Yeah, I mean, I use something called Postman.
Mhm.
I still don't fully understand what it is. There's like 100 buttons on Postman, and
It
like
brings you letters and packages, and you
there's
have
so
to
much
sign for
stuff
them,
going
right?
on. I learned how to use one small part of it, and so I kind of like it's almost like it's a scary alleyway, and I know one door in it, and I just run to that door. I'm like, get there, get there. I know how to use it, so I like quickly click into the place I know how to work, and it just turns like a response. And
I love it.
I ignore all the other stuff. It's just like
Amazing.
there's so much to learn in this space. So I think it's just like I don't have to learn every single thing at one time. I just have to learn the small pieces that I need
Yeah.
in order to build this product. And then as I learn all those and feel comfortable with those, then I can keep adding in. So I'm sure, in a couple weeks, I'll learn more about Postman, but that
Yeah.
won't feel as overwhelming because I've already mastered these other aspects. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like breaking it down for myself. Okay, I'm just gonna
Totally.
learn one piece at a time.
Yeah. Just it's like, okay, today, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
Well, oh, okay, what do I need to learn now? Um, and again, always giving yourself that there's a task that you're trying to accomplish,
Mhm.
right? You're not just staying in like conceptual hypotheticals. It's like, no, I need to do this thing. So now what do
Mhm.
I need to?
Start just
Yeah.
fiddling. Yeah, the only way to learn. And that's why I tell people with Coda too. Like The only way to learn is to pick something, like make a budget for your family, and like realize that the first thing you make, you'll probably never use. But that's how you're going to learn, because you're going to have this, oh, I want a button on my Kodadoc that updates this field. You have a concrete problem in mind. You have to solve it. It's motivating to solve. So same with packs. Like, I'm just going to sync one piece of data from this source, right?
The end.
Yeah, the end, and making it reachable.
Yeah. Do you have any other advice for folks who are like thinking about getting started building their first pack? We've already gotten so many beautiful little nuggets of information and wisdom from you, but any other advice that you would provide people with?
Yeah, practically Codecademy or some other source, you have to have the foundational of like understanding, like, why is there a comma there? What does the word let mean, right? Like, just spend a few hours on that to get the foundational like vocabulary. Maybe read that API thing that I shoved into the thing to understand what that is. And then use the community. The community is awesome. There's so many helpful people there to kind of help you work through your pieces. Eric's always on, helping people out. So yeah, and then choose something small, bite-sized, and know that you're gonna struggle. I still do every single day, but it's worth it. It's fun.
Yeah. Now, the Strava pack was not the first one that you built, correct? Could you walk us through the first one that you built?
Yeah, the first one I built was a hex to RGB. So I can even maybe throw that up there.
Ooh, let's see. Let's
go Coda.new, and then we'll go insert hex RGB. Here it is. So you can just do add to doc. So all it does is like it takes values and converts them to a different value. So here's my favorite color. My favorite color is 628 DBD. It's a blue color, but it just takes that value, which is a value, and it turns it into an RGB value. So that was it. And the reason I chose that is because it felt tangible. It felt reachable. It didn't have to do with an API. It just was testing my JavaScript knowledge.
Yeah.
And actually what I did first is I actually built that native function in Coda. So I built it without a pack just to understand, like, what do I have to do here? Right? Like, what kind of transformations would I have to do? And it helped me understand like the contours of, so here's where I built it in Coda, right? Here's a hex code is that, and here's like an RGB. And so you can kind of change it.
Fun.
And so I built all this was built not with a pack, but just with native Coda formulas, right? Like, so if I can even see what's going on here. I built it somewhere else, apparently.
Okay, I've got a little table that's powering it.
Yeah, okay. So format, it's taking these values and these values, right? So this is, I just built on this page. It was trying to figure it out. So with name, filter, round down, divided by 16. So these kind of calculations help me figure out, okay, what am I going to actually have to do in JavaScript? And then that gave me a real, now it was kind of going from Spanish to Italian. It's like, okay, I've done it in Coda. I've learned how to make that work. Now I can go to my pack and I can make that work. I wonder if I can make this come up. Packs.
And one thing, as you're pulling this up, this type of pack, I think, is one of my favorites, even though it may not be considered like the most fancy, but those packs where you create a formula for something super, super specific. Because like you saw, like you could calculate that in Coda. Here it is. I've built this whole thing. But now, instead of me having to now load that into every doc where I want to do this transformation, playing with color, I now just have this formula that I can call on. So it's you've kind of created this wonderful shortcut for yourself. And that's one of the things I love, is that if you have a very specific type of formula or type of calculation that you do based on your area of expertise. I'm thinking about all of my wonderful folks in finance, or folks trying to think about conversions or science. You could calculate that big beefy thing in Coda, no problem. But then maybe you want to use that same bit of intelligence doc after doc after doc. That's where these pack formulas can really help, because now instead of me having to add that every time, I just go equals hex code RGB, and now I've got it. So that's one of my favorite things to start with, folks, here is like, is there some kind of calculation that you can play with? And then of course, sync tables get really, really fun too. But I love being able to distill something that is your area of expertise, your knowledge, your authority, and being able to now turn that into a little formula that you can
Mhm.
use over and over again.
Yeah. So someone in the community asked me, they saw my like Kodadochs, they're like, why did you make a pack for this? Like you can already do this just with color formulas.
Mhm.
Well, that wasn't the point, right? Like
Yep.
the point was to learn. I needed to pick something that felt like it had value to me. And I
Mhm.
needed to pick something that felt like it's not all this scary API and this and authentication. It's just like, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do this. And that's how I started.
Yeah. Just pointing at it like, that's me. Look what I did. Yeah.
You do it.
So then how did you let's kind of walk through, we had the test pack, be like, yes, I can do this. We have the Strava pack.
Mhm.
What sort of take us through the rest of your development journey? Where did that then lead?
Yeah. So then I just, bite size. I guess I really dislike this metaphor. I hate it, but I'm going to use it.
Do
When
it.
people say like, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time.
Oh, yeah. How do you eat an elephant? You don't, because they're an endangered species. But how do you eat a 5-foot long Subway sandwich? One bite at a time?
I'd rather eat an elephant than a Subway sandwich. Sorry, Subway. But yeah, so now I'm working on a lot. So I wanted to make a form pack. Like I was like, oh, this was just another idea of mine. I was like, there's already a type form pack for Coda. It'd be cool to take other forms out there and make a similar pack. I was like, that'll be easy.
Mhm.
It wasn't. I asked Eric Kalita, who's on this code. He's with Coda. He's a developer advocate. And I asked one other friend of mine who was building packs a lot. And I said, what's it going to look like to build this? And they said, oh, that's going to be a dynamic sync table. That's really scary and that's really hard. I don't know if I would go there.
This alley is too dark. Don't
It
do
was
it.
kind of basically like, hey, like you are learning and that's a pretty scary place. Like they're pretty complex. And so I said, then that is what I'm going to choose to do.
I'm gonna do it.
So yeah, it was fun. So I built there's like within, as you start building packs, you'll learn there's like, formulas, and then there's sync tables, and then there's dynamic sync tables. And so now I'm working on a couple packs that use dynamic sync tables that are a jot form pack. There's a paper form pack. Paper form, I haven't announced it, but it's in the gallery. It's live. You can use it. And then we'll be trying a few others. But yeah, they're scary and they're hard. Like there's still bugs on them that I'm trying to figure out and I'm trying to wrap my head around every single day as I work through these dynamic sync tables. They are really hard, but fun.
And what makes them challenging? Like, I'm just curious.
Yeah. So Clifford asked too, what's a dynamic sync table? So
yeah, exactly.
Strava was very simple. Let me share my screen one more time. Strava is not dynamic. And what I mean by that is every single activity you take from Strava is predictable. Every activity is going to have if I can go here, an ID. It's going to have a type. It's going to have a gear ID. It's going to have a PR count. It's going to have a distance, right? So I can predict, and then I can hard code and say, okay, hey, Strava API, can you give me the distance of your ride and the max speed and when I did it and the kudos, right? I know what Strava is going to give me. I can predict that. And so I can essentially tell it to give me exactly what I want. A dynamic sync table means you cannot predict beforehand the fields or the columns. So for forms, right, there might be a form, a jot form, a type form that asks 3 questions. Or there might be a jot form or a type form that asks 50 questions, right? You can't predict beforehand how many questions there are on a form, nor what type they are, nor what the actual questions are. And so when you're making your pack, it has to be dynamic. It has to essentially go into that API and read it for you. So Strava, I just hard coded and said, give me the distance, give me the map, give me the videos. This one, the computer has to read it for you. So you have to make some code to teach the computer how to read it and return it for you.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
And that's how it makes it harder.
And I would assume then as well, if you have one of these forms where there's like branching questions as well, right? Where it's like, okay, maybe this form has a very predictable subset of like, I ask these questions, but depending on the user, it may go down different routes based on that as well. Ooh, yes.
So it's more flexible and dynamic and fun. But it is a lot harder because instead of you just saying, give me distance, map, kudos, and speed, you have to help the computer know.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to zoom out and figure out, okay, what are we really looking at here? And then how can I help this poor little computer that doesn't have a human brain
Mhm.
adapt and think laterally.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's difficult, but yeah, I keep like ebbing and flowing in between,
Mhm.
like, I can't do this, I can do this, I can't do this, I can do this. So
Yeah.
there's a problem I'm having with one of my packs right now, and I just can't figure it out. And
Mhm.
like every other day, I'm just like, this is above me. Like, I'm not a coder, I can't do this. I'll just like farm it out to someone who can do it for me. And then I have to like go like and give myself a little pep talk. Like, no. Like, this is the only way you learn. Like,
Yeah.
this is the only way you do learn and the only way you do grow is you approach challenges that are challenging, appropriately
Yeah.
challenging, but also reachable at the same time.
Yeah. I
So
keep thinking about, since you and I are both educators, the whole like
yeah.
flow state, right? Where as we're learning, it's like I need to have just enough ease and just enough challenge for
Mhm.
me to progress so that the learning is going to be this sort of little series of trough, peak, trough, peak, trough, peak, but with an upward right dynamic of like, okay, great, I'm achieving. But if we only had it be easy, we'd get bored and going, well, this is stupid. I don't want to do it anymore.
Yep.
And then, but if it's too challenging, then we're like, I'm done. I'm going to go have a piece of cake instead. But if we have just enough of that kind of the tension between those two, that's where it gets really enjoyable because we've achieved something. Um, and I always tell people like, take the biggest risk, which is the risk of being not perfect at something. Like,
Mhm.
take the risk to be a little bit bad at something for a while because it will pay off if you've got that end motivation of that problem.
Mhm.
Amazing. So I have a question. You're a super pack person now. Do you ever build Kodadochs without a pack anymore?
Of course.
Yeah. Talk me through that a little bit. Like, when do you decide, a pack is required versus
Uh
I can just go straight docking?
yeah. Um it just depends on the use case, right? I view a Kodadoc as a specific tool, right? That you identify something within your life or your work that you need to solve.
Mhm.
And so that could be a process that takes a lot of time, or that could be some data and information that you need to organize, whether it be
Mhm.
a grocery list or a budget, or whatever it is, right? And so then it's just scoping and mapping out the problem. Like, what would make this easiest? And if that involves a pack or an integration, then do it. And if not, I mean, Coda, the reason I love it is it's incredibly powerful. It doesn't need packs to solve problems. Like,
Mhm.
you can build Kodadochs to solve problems. So if you need a pack, you need a pack. And if you don't, just build it with Coda.
Yeah. I love it. Put that on a t-shirt, right? Like,
There
this
you
is
go.
just what's your favorite part about building packs? What's the most fun or most enjoyable for you?
um, yeah, I love creating. I
Mhm.
love creating in all of its forms. So even if it's cooking, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have this idea or you have a recipe in your mind, and then like you work on it and then you get to eat it. And there's that moment where like the fork hits your mouth and you're like, holy moly, this tastes awesome. Like,
Yeah.
I've just created something. Or whether that's music, I'm a musician as well. And so like having an idea for a song or knowing a song you want to learn, and
Mhm.
then like the moment where it feels fluid and you just hear the music ring and you're just like,
Mhm.
wow, that's awesome. So I think the
Love that.
same is with Coda and packs. There's just that, like, I have this idea, I want my Strava data in, and then the first moment where I press like sync, your like heart's racing, you're like, please, and then you see it come in, you're just like, it's just so gratifying, right? The moment you take
Yeah.
your first bite, or the moment the song rings out, or the moment you see the data come in, I think it
Mhm.
all is within that field of creating. um,
Yeah. It's so true. It's that maker feeling, right? Like, and
yeah
we might be making art or food or technology, but that same feeling of like, yes, I can see it, I can touch it, I can hear it. There's
yeah and
really
it
nothing
feels,
better
it's
than
just
that.
really rewarding, right? Like, it
Yeah.
came from your work and your effort. So
Mhm. I love it. We have another question from Eric, which is, you mentioned building some private packs. Can you talk more about when it makes sense to have a private pack versus something that's
mhm.
available on the gallery?
Yeah, so gallery packs I view as very general, and everyone could use them.
Mhm.
Private packs I'm building one right now for a client who has a workflow where they consistently make specific copies. They have like 12 different templates,
Mm,
and each one of the clients they work with gets a template.
mm,
And they're getting all these clients, right? So they're constantly making templates and having to choose which template to make. And then they're also like having to keep track. Like, now every single time they make a template, they have a new doc that's tied to
right.
a specific client. And so we've got all these docs, and it's like, how do we organize them? How do we find them? Do I manually drag them into folders? And then every single time I've got to make all these clicks and go into Coda, a new template, and then I've got to rename it, right? So I just made this flow with a private pack that essentially it's a drop down with all the templates available, and they just select the one they make and they press a button and it instantly copies the correct template, it names it, and it like organizes it for them.
Yeah.
And so then inside this one Kodadoc, they have then buttons to access that. So they have all their templates for their specific clients automatically named, created. So that's something that no one else would ever use, right? Because it's very specific to their company and how they work. And so, and the code itself is hard coded with like doc IDs. So it's going to specifically copy a doc ID. So that is very much to their workflow.
Yeah, I love it. Nina is like, yes, that's amazing. I love it. Nina also is a big Coda consultant as well. Fantastic.
Yeah, she's awesome.
I know. I agree. Nina is awesome. Everybody here on this call is awesome. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. I can guarantee that. So we've been talking a lot today, everyone, but I want to just open up the floor. What other questions do you have for Scott, either about the pack journey, current packs, how to build packs, Coda in general, cool docs? What questions do you have? And hey, Renee, I love this where you're talking about, I have so much to learn, but remember, you don't need to learn everything right now in order to see some progress, right? You know, Scott's building super awesome, cool things, but it all started with one little formula. Love this, Christian. And good to see you, man. Can you show how to get started from scratch? So let's say you're like, okay, I'm ready to do a pack. What next? How would you start?
I would go, and Christian is a phenomenal Coda builder.
I agree.
And we have, I think, if it's okay, sharing Christian, just a similar background in that we didn't come from tech, we didn't come from learning. And so this is how I started. I literally just went to Codecademy. I was like, what is going on? This is a colorful website. JavaScript.
Because there's like, wow, this font is like really resonant for me.
Learn JavaScript. And I just went here and I pressed start. And then it started to teach me how to use it. And I spent, again, 3 hours on there, and it would just teach me like, here's JavaScript. And it walks you through. It's really easy. You can do it on a free account, so you can start learning free. After that, once you learn enough syntax, if you've used Coda for a while and you understand Coda formulas, this is going to fly by. You're going to spend a couple hours on here and be ready to build packs. If you're newer to Coda, I would kind of do in tandem. Keep building on Coda, keep using Coda formulas, and learn this at the same time. And it might take a little bit longer. But as we talked about at the beginning, Coda kind of is that like secretly teaching you JavaScript. So the more time you spend in Coda, the less time you'll spend learning JavaScript.
It's like osmosis, right? Like put the book under your pillow and you'll learn everything you need for your exam.
And then once you do, I think the pack place is very awesome. So I would go create a pack. Okay, let me zoom this here. So it's really helpful, right? Like if you start and create a new pack, like it adds so much helpful. I don't know who's responsible for helping all this come together, but it's really easy to just start seeing like what's happening. There's all these little green lines that tell you what this is doing, right? Like here's a line of code and this is what it does. And here's another line of code and this is what it does. And right now I just started editing this. Like instead of saying hello, I want it to say hi, right? And then building it and watching it happen in your pack. So I would do some Codecademy, start with an example pack, just start tweaking and editing it, and then boom, boom, bada bang, you're gonna make it.
Yeah. And again, it reminds me of learning a language where it's like, I could learn how to say, I like dogs. But then as soon as I learn the word for horses, I could now say, I like horses because I have that structure and I just put in hi instead of hello, or, caballos instead of perros, right? Very cool. We have a question from Kyle, which is, as a Coda hobbyist, what are the essentials to master first? I have some opinions, but Scott, I'd love to hear from you.
The filter formula. I to everybody, I think Coda will feel like a spreadsheet, like a glorified spreadsheet with some pictures, until you start learning that filter formula. I think the filter formula really brings things together. and really starts unlocking some of that like magic. Like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh. So
I agree. I always joke there are only 5 formulas you need to know, and 4 of them are filter.
yeah, and there's a lot of great resources out there. I wrote like a educational doc on filter that shows, I think, just a
Ooh,
bit more.
I'd love to see it.
Um, yeah, so I'll put that in real fast. But I think,
Nice.
yeah, I give this to everyone first. I'm just like, you've got to go learn filter,
Mhm.
and you've got to learn how to use it specifically. And so wrote this big document to help people learn.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, because filter is where now it's like, I've got my stuff. Now I just want to see part of it. Oh, and now I can show that as a chart instead of a word or a word cloud or a this or
And it
that.
helps you
So,
connect your tables, right? Like, so
mhm,
like if you have a project table and a task table, like how do you make those talk? How do you make those like consistently
yeah,
relate to one another?
yeah,
Filter, like
nice.
everything's filter.
Yes, filter is Bay. Put that on a t-shirt as well. Also, Kyle, if you haven't checked it out already, check out coda.io/learn. That has all of our videos about the core building blocks of Coda, including some of those formulas. So that's another really good place to start too. We have a question from Nina, which is, how do you prioritize what you'll focus on next? I assume that you have one huge wish list of all the things you want to tackle.
Gosh. A lot of metrics. Some of it is how I'm feeling in the moment. Um, what am I motivated on at this moment?
Mhm.
Another one is how much time do I have, right? Because like I won't approach a big JavaScript problem in my pack unless I have like 2 to 3 hours, because it gets me like a half an hour to get set, like to
Sure.
open all my tabs and to go, where was I again? And what was the API call? So how
Mhm.
much time do I have? Um, yeah, and I think motivation is huge. Like, what am I really interested in? Like right now, I'm really interested in making that Discord pack. So I might log off after this and start looking at all the Discord API documentation. Um, yeah, I don't know if that
Yeah.
was an answer.
You know what that's making me think of is like, y'all, I just love food so much. I love food and I love language, which is why my analogies are always those things. It's kind of the same thing with cooking, right? It's like, okay, what am I in the mood for? How much time do I have to cook this thing? Because if I only have an hour, you
Mhm.
bet I'm not going to make any bread because I don't have time to do that. And then, well, what's in my pantry right now? What might I want to play with? Or what's an ingredient I've never used and maybe I want to try it out? It's kind of that same thing of really being mindful of where your energy is at and what you currently have available to you and how much time you have. So that's kind of what's resonating for me, is really thinking about, what's gonna taste good at the end of the day. Like, what are you really excited to eat?
Yeah,
And like, do you just have 10 minutes? Well, then what you're going to do is you're going to put some ramen noodles on a pot and you're going to fry up an egg and put it on top with a little bit of fish sauce. Like, that's what you're going to do. But if you've got 3 hours, maybe it's time to make some paella. Yeah. I guess I'm just really hungry. This is what I always realize when I give an analogy. I'm like, wow, Maria, someone needs to feed you, and maybe that should be yourself. Um, Excellent. We have a question, which is, how do you pitch or explain Coda to someone who hasn't heard of it before?
I always say it's a spreadsheet with superpowers.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, I mean, because you got to explain it, you've got to connect it to something that they have a concept for. Ooh, I'm
Mhm.
getting a phone call.
It's me. The call is coming from inside the
Spam.
house.
Anyways, um, yeah, because spreadsheet, right? People, I think that's what people first look at when they see it, or
Mhm.
oftentimes people go, okay, I've been using Excel and Google Sheets for a while. I'm kind of frustrated with that. Let me give a go at Coda. So kind of understanding, like, okay, there's some correlations between Coda and a spreadsheet, but it's got
Mhm.
superpowers, right? Like it's got buttons and you can email from it and you can work together on it in other ways. And so I think the very basic way, I just
Yeah,
say spreadsheet with superpowers,
I love it. Fantastic.
even though it's much
Folks,
more than a spreadsheet. So
yes, yes, I love it. It's a database.
yeah.
Folks, we got about 10 more minutes. So if there's any other questions that you have for Scott or myself, please go ahead, pop it over there in chat. In the meantime, one of the sort of closing questions that I always ask everybody is, what is your current favorite Coda doc? It can be one that you've built or one that you've just seen out there, but what is one that you're like, ooh, this is really cool? One that's sparking some inspiration for you.
My current favorite Kodadoch is a document I built for a rock climbing gym.
Amazing.
And for a lot of reasons. I think if I spent 5 weeks building an awesome document that it had a huge impact on the business or our team, makes sense, right? This one I spent 4 hours on, but it had a massive impact. And so I love just that idea in no code, right? The idea of like these no code tools like Coda is that we can take an idea to reality really quickly, and one that is actually functional and makes a lot of use. And so I built this doc in 4 hours, and it just absolutely changed how this gym operates.
That's amazing.
And so it's really cool to see how a doc like that built so quickly can make such an impact.
Yeah. That's honestly why I love Coda too, is that it actually allows me to quickly make change in my life or allow other people to quickly make change in their work or their life as well. And that so you don't have to wait for someone else to solve a problem that you have, right? You don't have to wait for a software company
that kind of meets your need, but kind of has some other bloated stuff. It's just like, I need a tool that does this.
Yeah. And I want to see my information in this way. I want to have this experience. I want to call everything what I want to call it. I don't want to have to call it something else. And that you can do it. You don't have to wait for some developer somewhere to do it for you. Like, you can do it yourself. Ooh, we have a cool question from Jordan. Is that what you just saw, Scott?
Yeah, Jordan, it's in the works. So there is a pack maker who's working on it. It's getting close to the end. So hopefully you'll be able to send Outlook emails. And there's another one for Outlook calendar stuff. So those are in the works. They're just not public yet. They're still being worked on.
Yeah. But I mean, the short answer, everybody, is like, could a pack be built for XYZ? You're just going to want to check, does that thing have an API? Which is, can I buy those ingredients at the store to be able to work with it?
It has to be a certain kind of API too, which I learned because there's a service I use called Noun Project. It has over 1 million just icons.
Ooh, cool.
It'd be so cool to get all these icons into my doc, and they have an API. And then I learned it's the wrong kind.
No.
I know. So it's great. But I learned that by posting in the community.coda.io, right? I just said, I posted the link. I said, here's the link to their API documentation. Can I build a pack with this? And someone responded back and said, no, that's the wrong kind. So definitely look for something you want to connect. I just literally go on Google and search, I wanted to make one for Poshmark.
Oh, cool.
So I was like, Poshmark API documentation, and nothing clear was really showing up. So I'm like, well, I don't really know. But yeah, search just blah, 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 API, click on it, look at it. If you think it's possible, post in the community with a link and say, hey, I want to build a pack for this. Here's its API documentation. Is this possible? And you'll get some good answers.
Beautiful. Ooh, hey, Stephen. So good to have you here. And I will see you later today in our doctorate kickoff. Exciting. The question is, since packs unlock so much possibilities, will they be included in a future doctorate syllabus? So the answer is yes. What we're going to do in the future doctorates is we're going to have a little mini module on packs and building, not a full deep dive, but kind of like what Scott's talking about, what are the concepts, the inputs, how to think about building a pack and what you might need to gather it. And then my hope is to build what I'm going to call, this is a working title, but I'm into it, the Packaloreate, because I love a good pun, where we actually can do a deep dive of building from start to finish in a process. So that's something that I'm hoping to have later this year. But when we're in it, we can always talk as much as you like. Cool. Why are we not able to get the access token while OAuth authentication in a Coda pack? You know what? I'm probably not the right person to answer that question because I am still in my pack learning journey myself. But Eric, I know since you're here, if you have anything to share on that, let us know.
He pieced out, but
Eric, come on.
It's for security reasons. I mean, again, I don't know the full detail, but essentially if you make a pack, Coda wants to stand behind it so that anyone in the world can feel confident using it. And so there's a lot of security within packs of what you can and cannot do.
Sure.
So that every pack published to the gallery isn't doing something malicious. And so I know that you can't access OAuth tokens of individuals to protect that information so that other people in the world can publish packs and with security, knowing that they're good to go.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. We have one more question, which is from Martine. Hey, Martine, where do you get those cool icons in your docs?
So they're like Coda's icons. I made a document with over a couple thousand of them.
I love this doc. Gretchen was talking about it in our webinar with her.
You know
She's
what
like,
I
"It's the
did?
best."
I found them all by trial and error. Here, it's in the chat. How to get
Nice.
to icons in Dex. I found them by trial and error by like guessing. And I had my high school students during like break times just throw out random words at me. I was like, all right, everybody, I'm on. And I set up like a Coda system to like quickly just input words and it would check if they returned actual icons. And my high schoolers would just throw random words at me and it would just type, and then got over 1,000 icons.
My favorite icon that I have discovered exists is called sheep on bike.
Yeah, he does. I think he's in my doc.
I'm like, I don't know why, but I'm glad it exists.
He does. Sheep on bike does exist.
Amazing. Well, Scott, thank you so much for sharing your inspiration, your humor, and just like creativity with us. I feel so invigorated after this conversation. Before we close out, is there anything that you would like to plug for yourself so we can kind of pay it forward to you?
You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at the Coda guy.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's probably about it. Follow me on Twitter. I like to post stuff about Coda. I like to post like educational stuff or cool tricks and things like that.
Nice.
And I would say, yeah, I'd say the biggest thing if you're wanting to learn, like Jeff, if you're not a part of the community on Coda, it's a super engaged and helpful place. So I'd head to the community and post all the questions you have.
Nice. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Scott. Have a beautiful rest of your day. And thank you everyone for joining us, for nerding out with us. We will be posting this recording to our YouTube channel so you can relive the magic. And we are always hosting Maker Stories webinars, looking at all sorts of different aspects of what it means to build on Coda. So you can get inspiration like this pretty much every other week. So check out coda.io/webinars for more information. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks and take care, everybody. Bye.